Good morning, everyone. This is Miss T. I wanted to finish what we started in Genesis. I'm going to summarize. There is, if you want to go back and go through the lineage, it's telling you whose son was who, and we stopped with when Cain had murdered his brother. He was cursed and told to go on his own, and basically he was an outlaw, but God told them not to touch him, not to kill him, or they would have consequences. So he did actually have a wife, Cain, and he had a son, and his son's name was Enoch. And then it went on to tell who Enoch's child was. Irad begot Mahujalel, and he begot Lamech, and Lamech begot, Lamech had two wives, and so he had, his first wife was Adiah, and his other wife was Zillah, and so they had children too. And then it says that Adam and Eve had another son, and his name was Seth, and Seth's child was Enos, and Enos' child was Malayer, and then Malayer's Jared, and then Jared was Enoch's father, and then Enoch's son was Methuselah. We know about Methuselah because he was the oldest man that lived in the Bible. But I wanted to discuss Enoch because reading the story, it sounds like he had favor with the Lord. He was faithful, and he never turned away from God, and they were doing all kinds of wickedness, and so he never turned away from God. And so it says in the other chapters of the fathers who were having the sons, that it would tell how many years they lived and then they died. But for Enoch, it says how many years he was, and he was not, because God took him. So he went to heaven. There's only two people that went to heaven without dying, and he was one. And so I was thinking, this man was so good and a faithful servant to God that surely there's a bigger story about him. Now, I knew about the book of Enoch, but I never really understood what people were talking about. I guess when you're raised in a church, you're basically told what to believe. So you focus on what you're supposed to learn, and you don't venture off into other things. So I never even really thought about it. I just thought Enoch was some character, not a character, someone in the Bible who was controversial, and that's it. I didn't really look into it. But as I was saying, I thought Enoch was, for him to be so special that God just took him to heaven without him passing away. I wanted to read more about him. And so actually I found out, and I'm sure you guys all know, that there was a book in the Bible. Enoch had a part in the Bible, and they took it out. And the first thing I thought is, how can you take away from what God's story or the book, and you just say, we're going to take this part out? I mean, I know you can do that when you're making a movie or writing your own book, but how can you just come to the Bible and say, we don't like this and we're going to take that out? That to me sounds like you're going to be held accountable. You can't just put in or whatever the Bible. The Bible was here for man to study and learn and to be ready for Jesus' second coming. So they took it out. They said it wasn't pleasant in I guess it would stir up fear or whatever. But Revelations has a lot of things in there. I don't know, but you should not be taking from the Bible. So actually, Enoch's chapters that were telling about his dreams, what he was seeing at the end times of the trumpets and the angels holding back the winds, and then Jesus telling them to let the winds go, and just the whole basic of what's going to happen when he comes back. So they're going to take the message and use it, but they're going to take the book out of the Bible, which doesn't make any sense. So where if someone's to say where, well, I guess it is in Revelations. You can hear, well, you can, no, he's not. Actually, he's just giving you the signs of the times and what to look for before he comes back. But how are you going to take the information from the book of Enoch and use it, but take the book out? So, yeah, that's disturbing. But that's people are finding out a lot of things that were happening or that happened, and finding out the truth. That I believe the book of Mary was taken out of the Bible, for whatever reason. Maybe they felt that women shouldn't be in the Bible. I don't know, but there's a lot of women in the Bible, and we're going to study on that too, because a lot of perception is that women were evil. We had Delilah and Mary the Magdalene and others, but there were some good women in the Bible too that they don't stress, and that actually helped Jesus along with his disciples to spread the word. But of course, I guess since man wanted to interpret the Bible, they left those parts out. So like I said in Genesis, they're going through the lineage of the fathers and the sons until they get to Noah. So of course, again, Noah was faithful to the Lord, and so God came to him and told him that he was going to destroy the earth. Oh, let me get back to Enoch. I'm sorry. So he also told of, so there was angels. They were called watchers. And when angels were formed or made or created, they were not created to marry and have children. They were created to watch over and protect people, and worship the Lord. So these watchers who actually looked like balls of fire, but they could change into man whenever they wanted to. So they could look like the rest of, humans whenever they wanted to. So I was reading a part in Genesis that I couldn't understand. It would say, men of God and sons of God and daughters of man. And I'm like, I couldn't understand what that meant. But if you took something out of the Bible that explains it, then you wouldn't understand it. Because who are the men of the sons of God, and who are there different? I couldn't understand. But what you'll find out in Enoch, these angels, they're fallen angels. They were supposed to be watchers, but they became lustful, and they wanted to be with the women on earth, and so they did, and they married them, and they had children. Of course, this was against God's will, and so their children there's a name for them. You can look that up, but basically they were giants, and they just went around the earth causing havoc and just destroying things and doing all types of things. And they were produced because of the sin that the angels went down and had children, married and had children with the women of the earth. So I can understand where it says sons of God. They were, because they were angels. They just disobeyed. And then the daughters of men would be the daughters who were born to the men that were here on earth. And so when they got together, this is what they had. They made these giants who were destructive and evil. So when God looked down, he said he wanted to destroy the earth because of all the evil, and he wasn't pleased about what was transpiring, so he wanted to clean it up. So he went to Noah and told him, of course, to build the ark, and what to put in it, and how it's going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and so of course God could have just said ark, and it would have been there, because I believe it took Noah many years to build that ark. But what it symbolizes to me is the faithfulness of Noah. Also, it symbolizes that God was still trying to save people, because had at any time anybody else came and said, forgive me, Lord, please, whatever, they would have been in the ark too. But that didn't happen, because we know that the only people that went into the ark was Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives. And it does say their wives. So it doesn't say Noah, his sons, his daughters, and his wife. It says Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives. So they were already married when they got on the ark, because God had, after the flood, he had told them to go out, and be fruitful and multiply. So they stayed in the ark until, of course, the flood had subsided and they had land again. So I'm trying to go ahead, because the story of Ham, Shem, and Japheth, which were Noah's sons, there's a story that people are saying that I don't know if that's how it really actually went, or if people's misinterpretation. Some people, like I said, when you read the Bible, some people can read it and interpret it this way, or some people can read it and interpret it another way. So I wanted to go ahead and read ahead of that chapter before we talk about it, because I wanted to understand what I thought or what it means to me. And then if someone else has a different meaning, we can discuss that too. You can always put in my comments something, some people do, and then we talk about, what are the differences. So Noah's, like I said, Noah's sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And there was a time where Moses was drunk and he was naked, and his son. So I don't know what that means. That I assume that you're not supposed to look at your naked parents or whatever. But it says in here that Ham saw that his father was naked, and he told his two brothers. And then when Shem and Japheth came, they took the garment and they put it over him, and they walked backwards and covered him and turned their heads another way, I guess, not to see their father. And so because Ham did this, he was punished for that, but it wasn't directly towards him. I believe it was towards his grandchildren or his fourth son, and so I need to look into that. And then it goes on with the lineage again, about who was whose father was who, and what happened in the next generation. So this is where later on it's starting to bring in the women, like Miriam and the other women, because before you were only hearing the sons that were begotten. So I don't know if it just wasn't those. Well, we know they had women, but I don't know if it's just because the women that are important or have an important job or a duty in the Bible are the only ones mentioned. And I'm pretty sure that would be the issue. Because if you put like I said before, if you put everybody in the Bible, there would be nothing. You couldn't finish the book. They would still be writing it. What also is fascinating, but I don't know. They left stuff in the Bible that gave us clues to what was really happening, but they still forced us to, and when I say they, I'm just saying mainstream or whatever you want to say, religion, gave us this narrative and forced us to accept this narrative when there was clearly something different in the Bible. It said that Ham and Cush lived near Cush, the sons of Cush. So basically the countries or the towns were named after the people that built them. Well, Cush is modern day Ethiopia. But it was called Cush back then. So where would that put the Garden of Eden and the cities around it? That would have put them in Africa, because you can't, they have in here that rivers would flow from Eden and go take the route, and some would pass Cush and some would pass other cities that are in Africa. But they blatantly, and you can understand, if you look at this, why they would take the Bible or tell us that, or not allow people to read, because knowledge is the key. And if you read, you knew it would contradict everything that they were telling you. But fortunately, these people weren't just living it. They knew because they were born there. So the stories were coming firsthand, or told. Some of it might be ancestors that, because like I said, there wasn't no way that slaves were going to be singing to God after their slave masters were telling them God said that they have no souls and that they're not going to heaven and their property. And why would they be praying and singing to a man whom said this is what's supposed to happen to them? So they didn't believe. They did not believe it, because they already knew the God that they serve and who they were. Even though it was they were trying to erase the truth and make them forget the truth. People still held on to that, and thank God for that, because a lie will spread quicker. It's like wildfire. And so when when other people get a hold of it and have an agenda, it spreads faster than the truth would. A lie sounds better than the truth. So when people say, let's, how that doesn't sound, people are not going to want to hear that, or they're not going to, so let's add, something else into it. It's kind of like, what do they call clickbait or whatever? You you lie to get people's attention to come in to listen to your whatever, and they really find out at the end that there was nothing in there that they had in their title. So it's like that. People want to catch your attention so that you hold on to that lie, and then it spreads like wildfire. People know that. Now, they really didn't, in the Bible, like I said, they would tell who came after who, and but they didn't talk about the stories of when they were children. Now, the way they did tell stories about the children is like Lazarus' sister, or the little girl that was couldn't walk, but they really didn't tell about the key points of what children did in the Bible days, except for Jesus. And they really didn't focus on that either. I mean, they just let us know he was born, what age he went to the temple, and at what age he's, that kind of stuff. But we all know that when we first were born, or when the first man came and the people that came after him, we all spoke the same language. So there was only one language, and we all spoke that language. But once again, because of man's determination not to follow God or to break his laws, we became we became separated. So whoever's bright idea was, we're going to build a temple that reaches up to the heavens. Like, that's almost saying we want to be as high or as more important or as God. And we know what happened to the angels who thought that they were going to be more important or higher than God. And so as they started to build this, whatever that they thought was going to be reaching the heavens, they all started speaking in different languages. They couldn't understand one another. And so they weren't able to finish because they couldn't understand what each other were saying. Now, I don't know if this is where people started to separate or go, to their own areas, but they did scatter abroad all over the face of the earth. But my thing is, I don't know how we all became different colors or races, or how that happened. And maybe that's because we don't need to know. We just know that we are. And so we scattered, away from each other and became different tribes, or different parts of the earth. They took on different beliefs. Now everybody knew that God was God, but they took on different, things. How men, and I'm going to say men, you're going to get, because that's how it was. Men were the head of the earth, the world, and they still are. And so laws that were made or whatever, it's because man decided that's how it was going to be. So I'm going to stop right there about them spreading and them trying to build the wall of Babel to be higher than, or as high as getting to the heaven, and why they now are separated. And then when I start again, it will be how I think it was Abraham or Abram that's in the next chapter, and what his significant part is, and it's Abram in the Bible. And also I'm going to bring with that the Book of Mary, and then with the Book of Mary, I'm probably going to search out to see if any more books were taken out the Bible, and if so, what they consist of and why they were taken out. And so, like I said, you can pick up the Bible and you can go to Genesis and just read Genesis.